Hello, my brother. Welcome to the Great Man Within podcast. Every episode designed to help you discover and live the great man within you. Hey, I'm really excited to share with you a powerful and simple exercise about envisioning the future you 1 year from today and seeing how you're showing up right now to give you clarity around how you can show up even bigger in your life right now in 3 different contexts. And I used this exercise yesterday. I facilitated a webinar for about 30 of the top financial advisors in the industry that I used to work in for 15 years. I did this with them yesterday and I was like, I got to do this for the Great Man Within podcast because you guys will absolutely get this and benefit from it. So that's coming up in a few minutes. First, I wanted to give you the heads up about a change to this podcast that's coming on this Monday, May 4th. So next week on Monday, May 4th, I'm going to be moving this daily podcast to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday podcast. So at the beginning of the quarantine era, about 6 weeks ago, I moved from a once a week podcast with Brian to a 7 days a week podcast to provide stability, fortify your inner foundation, give you a message of hope, give you something to listen to other than this outside negative news cycle, so that you could feel a sense of command and control amidst all of this change and turmoil. And it has been, for me personally, an incredible ride and a test of my ability to go deep, to produce something meaningful, to not just mail in an episode. I'm proud to say that over these past 6 weeks, there's not been a single episode that I have mailed in. I have given you my best. And sometimes my best doesn't feel like my best because there's certain days where I don't feel like my best. But surprisingly, even on those days, I get feedback from you that sometimes those are your favorite episodes. So I'm proud about how I've shown up. And I want to read to you a message that I got from one of our listeners yesterday, or actually came through this morning. His name is Ed H. And Ed said, Dominic, I've never written to any podcaster ever, so that makes me a podcast intercourse version? Not anymore, Ed. He said, I just heard your last Friday podcast, the one where you talked about backing off. And what he means by that is moving off of the daily podcast. And I yelled, no, we need you. But I've been there, work, and then burnt. While I love the daily podcasts and it's admirable how hard you work, no one in your rapidly expanding community wants you burnt out. It's okay. Take a breather. Take a week or two. Go have time for a while. Whatever it takes, it's okay. Everyone out here will tell you the same. We don't want to see you go, but do it for the team. And practice what you preach, dude, as you would say, laughing out loud. Get out of the man box and take a well-deserved break. Thanks so much for the last year and a half of life-enhancing, life-changing podcasts. First of all, Ed, brother, you touched my heart. Thank you for your enthusiasm and for letting me know that these daily podcasts were such a powerful part of your life over these last 6 weeks. And then it sounds like you've been listening for the past year and a half too. What I want to share with all of you is that this concept of pushing, working to the point of burnout is an old, tired paradigm that too many men fall into. And I want you to know, I'm not moving back from daily podcasts to 3 days a week podcasts because I'm burnt out or even fucking close to it. Not at all. In actuality, the reason for this shift is because I want to move from just this me sitting behind a microphone and sharing one way with you to establishing and forging community for you to step in where I can interact with you much more closely, to guide, to provide connections between you and other listeners so that we can do inner work together. And I have been working in my lab behind the scenes that I haven't really spoken too much about regarding what are exercises, projects, programs that I can offer up to you in a variety of ways so that you can do the inner work here with me and then also with the other men in this community. As you may know by now, I already have a mastermind of men, which is kind of like the that like when you're ready to go all in, there are 20 of these guys doing a year's worth of inner work together. And that's like deep investment, time, intimate work. And I wanted to offer a number of other more approachable ways for those of you who are like, okay, I still love listening. I'm not ready to go all in with a mastermind, but like, what's my next step? So the reason why I'm going to be moving back from 7 days a week to 3 days a week is because I'm building the next level of community. So when you're ready to enhance the work that you're doing, from going from listening to participating, from being an individual to being a member, a brother of a group of other men who are discovering and living the greatest versions of them, that's where I want to make sure that you have a home. And that's something that's missing right now. So Ed, don't you worry, brother. I am not anywhere near burnout. If anything, my tank is more full than it ever has been before. And these last 6 weeks have really grown me and shown what capacity I have to live at my edge and to support you. And so this is all coming from a place of evolving the level of support and guidance that I can provide to you going forward. All right. So the exercise that I wanted to lead you through today, and this is so simple, you can use this at any time. I've talked about that great leaders adapt first, right? Like my next book that's coming out, which is called On Purpose Leadership, which is mastering the art of leading yourself so that you can inspire and impact others. In there is that concept of adapting. Great leaders adapt first. Adapt first to changing environments. Adapt first to uncertain situations. And one of the ways that you can inspire yourself to adapt first, even when you may feel resistance around how you're feeling today or how the world is operating today, is to take yourself out of the crucible of right now, right? To actually put a pause on the world that you're in right now, which can feel all-encompassing, all-enveloping, and to imagine a future point in time where we are no longer here. Viktor Frankl did this all of the time when he was stuck in the concentration camps for 3 years, living in the most despicable, demeaning of circumstances. He envisioned what it would be like to walk out of the camp, to hopefully reconnect with his family one day, which unfortunately in his case did not happen, but envisioning how he would share his stories to many other people that could eventually benefit from, that could learn from his hardships, his trials and tribulations about the strength and the fortitude of the human spirit. That's exactly what he did. And envisioning that future version of himself is what gave him the hope to wake up every single day, to make meaning of the torture that he was going through for 3 fucking years. He envisioned that future state, which is what kept him alive. And he talks about in the book that many of the other men that he saw giving up had given up on those dreams and those hopes of the future because it was too painful for them in the experience. And what I want for you is 1 year from now, I want you to look back to the days right now, today, for the last 6 weeks, for the last 8 weeks of how you showed up, and I want you to be proud of yourself. So I want to ask you 3 questions. And you can do this whether like you're exercising or you're sitting down with a pen and a paper, wherever. Like this is so simple. You could do this right here in your mind. And also if you have access to something that you can write it down on your phone or on a piece of paper, this is even more powerful if you can do that too. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And you are going to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 based on how true it feels for you. 10 being the most true, 1 being the least true. Okay? So here we go. 1 year from now, I will look back at how I showed up as a leader in my work during this time and feel proud. 1 year from now, I will look back at how I showed up as a leader in my work during this time and feel proud. Rate yourself 1 to 10 based on how you've been showing up these last 6, 7, 8 weeks. 1 year from now, I will look back at how I showed up as a leader in my work during this time and feel proud. Rate yourself 1 to 10. Question number 2. 1 year from now, I will look back at how I showed up as a leader for my family and relationships during this time and feel proud. 1 year from now, I will look back at how I showed up as a leader for my family and my relationships during this time and feel proud. So if for family, if you are not a father, if you're not a husband, like I'm neither of those things. I look at how I showed up for my mother and my father who are older. I look at how I showed up for my sister, and then for my relationships. I'm not in a committed relationship, but how did I show up for my friends, my men's groups, for you, right? Like I consider my relationships with you in this question. So 1 year from now, I will look back at how I showed up as a leader for my family and relationships during this time and feel proud. Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Third and final question. 1 year from now, I will look back at how I showed up in leading myself during this time and feel proud. 1 year from now, I will look back at how I showed up in leading myself during this time and feel proud. Right? This really is asking yourself the question, do you feel proud about how you have led yourself over the last 6, 7, 8 weeks? Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in how you led yourself. Now, you have 3 ratings here for these questions around how you showed up as a leader in your work, how you showed up as a leader for your family and relationships, and how you led yourself. Take a look at those scores and see where your highest score is. And then also see the score that you want to improve, the score that needs the most time and attention, that needs an upgrade. When I ran this yesterday, many of the answers that scored the lowest were about leading themselves first. Think about that for a minute. How can you show up as a great leader in your work, as a great leader in your relationships and your family, if your lowest score is around leading yourself? That's a problem. And oftentimes we make the mistake of, just as we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, pushing to the point of tilt, grinding it out, emptying our tank until we can't anymore, and then we burn out. Or along the way, we just kind of dial back our capability and we give 60, 70, 80%, even though it feels terrible on the inside. We're only given a fraction of ourselves. Well, then you're not really showing up as a leader in your work or in your relationships and your family at a 10. There's no way if you're not showing up as a 10. So take a look at which score that you're rocking it in and celebrate yourself. Take a look at which score that you want to improve, and then use some of the tools that we have talked about in these podcasts over the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and obviously all of the archive that goes back, the year before that as well. There are no shortage of tools and resources and skills that you can put into place right now to upgrade that score. The idea, again, is that pull back the lens of the world that we're operating in right now, because we are not going to be in this forever. And when you emerge from that and establish a new normal, you want to look back at this period of time and feel a sense of pride about how you showed up. And one of the best ways to do that is to ask yourself right now how you're doing. Hey, I just noticed that we are so close to hitting 100 reviews on Apple Podcasts. And for some reason, that feels like a pretty significant milestone for us. If you've gotten benefit from this episode, or if you've enjoyed the 6 weeks worth of daily podcasts, if you've learned something that you've put into action and it's upgraded your life or one of the relationships in your life or how you've shown up as a leader in work, would you consider leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts? It'll take you 30 to 60 seconds. Many times I'll shout out someone who's written a review. And these are all ways that future listeners, other men who are seeking to get on the path, can take a look at this podcast and say, all right, it seems like this is the place to dive in. Every one of your rating reviews counts. And please help us if it feels good for you. And you can always count on me and Brian to keep bringing you the stuff that will help you discover and live the great man within you.